You're ready to take that next step in your purpose, but you're just not sure what that actual next step might be. You're hesitating because more than one path feels true. You want to start the business, or maybe you just feel pulled towards a certain profession or an assignment. And it feels like every step forward asks you to leave a part of yourself behind. So the real question becomes, if I choose this, what happens to the rest of me? And I totally understand how that can feel like such complex situation. Let me paint this picture for you in a different kind of way. And this comes to mind only because I recently had some work done in my house with an electrician, and it had to go into my electrical panel box. And as I was looking at that, I thought, wow, this makes complete sense as to how sometimes we go through this, or we might feel this. So in the electrical panel box, you know that there are multiple wires and they have switches, and those switches have names, and those switches are to help your house function. They're switches to your kitchen, your bathroom, your appliances, your furnaces, all the things that need wiring. And those wires are weaved all throughout your home so that it can function and help you live in a comfortable home. Our bodies, these temples that God has created, they're pretty much the same way. We have a lot of different wires all inside of us. Our head is that electrical panel box. And those wires, the gifts, the skills, the talents, all of those things that God placed inside of us, those are weaved all throughout our body, throughout our mind, our psyche, our intellect. It's weaved all throughout us so that we can function as a human being. The things that we like, the things that we dislike, our gifts, our skills, our talents, things that we are just naturally good at, things that we have a tendency to gravitate towards. That's basically how God made us. And the thing is, when it comes to getting clarity on your assignment, your purpose, knowing what that next step is, understanding what your calling should look like, the vision that God gave you, sometimes it can feel very difficult to know how to walk in that, because you have all of these different wires, all of these different skills and talents that say you're good at this and you're good at that, and you have a wire for this and a wire for that. And many times you sit and you wonder, which switch should I actually really utilize the most? What is that gift? What is that wire that says, this is it, this is the lane I should go down, this is the path, this is the place I should be, this is the calling, the assignment, all of the things that you should be focused on in your life. And sometimes when you have these questions, when you're trying to figure out, well, what should it be? What should I do? I'm good at so many different things. And so all of these gifts, skills, and talents that you have, you might feel like these are working maybe more against you than they are for you, because it keeps you in a place of just not knowing what to do. It may keep you in a place where you feel like clarity is just really extremely hard for you to get. It keeps you from taking the next step, because if you go one way, then you miss out on something else. And if you choose something else, you might miss out on the other path that you could have taken. But here's the real tension. Here is what I think is the problem that many of you have faced. And honestly, I have been there as well, is that the society, social media, gurus online will all tell you that you have to choose, that your life is either or, that your gifts are either or. It comes from being a multi-dimensional, multi-passionate, multi-skilled, multi-disciplined woman in a world that says you need to choose. In a world that says choose one thing, narrow yourself, decide now. One thing, simplify, even if it costs you disobedience, even if it costs you losing on one thing, you need to go with one thing. There's always an ultimatum. You have to pick a single lane of focus, because if you don't, you're going to be scattered. Your life is going to be scattered. You won't be able to succeed. You won't be able to get the traction that you need because you're just doing too much. You're focused on too many things. But deep down inside, one thing you know to be true. And if you haven't really acknowledged that yet or realized that yet, I want to tell you one thing that is true. That God did not place those many gifts and skills and desires and talents and experiences and natural tendencies, strengths inside of you so that you could feel like your life boils down to just an ultimatum. And if you look at Ephesians 2, and you will hear me talk about this scripture quite a lot in a number of my videos, you are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that you should walk in them. This means that your life is not random. This means that these gifts and skills inside of you are not coincidental, and they're not competing against one another, and they're certainly not there to make your life feel complicated and scattered and disconnected and disjointed from the ultimate plan and purpose that God has for your life. All of the gifts and the skills that God put inside of you was not so you could always feel like you're at a crossroads with, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do with your life? What particular area, single area should you focus on so that you can feel like you're doing the right thing? But this is where things need to shift for you. That this is not about fitting your life into one lane, one box, one category, because that's not how God made you. That is not how He made you. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with knowing that these wires, these gifts, skills, and talents are not here, are not in you to make you feel like you don't have focus, to make you feel like your life is a disorganized mess. God made you this way. And when He made you, He said that it was good. The word says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you are His workmanship. God being the ultimate creator, the workman who uniquely put you together to include every gift, every skill, every talent that you possess right now. God did not make a mistake. And God did not do it to bring you to confusion, because we know that He is not the God of confusion. And everything He does it well. Everything He does is perfect and it's marvelous. So rather than seeing all of these different things that make you who you are, rather than feeling like these things are not working for you, consider that they are. That's what Romans 8:28 tells us, that all things work together for good. And that includes your gifts, your skills, and your talents. These things work together for good. They're not working so that they can cause you to feel like you're stuck, you're in paralysis of analysis. Those gifts and talents are not there to keep you stagnant. Those gifts, skills, and talents are there so that you can bring the kingdom work and the assignment that God has for you, the calling that He placed on your life into the earth, so that people can receive the blessings that God is bestowing in you, so that others can receive it. So when your life does not fit into a category, when it doesn't fit into one single lane, this doesn't mean that you're missing out. It doesn't mean that you have to choose. It means that God made you whole. He made you a very unique being. And God does not want you to reduce yourself so that you can fulfill your calling. God does not reduce. God says that we're supposed to have dominion over the earth. He's also about increase. Some plant, some water, but it is God who gives the increase. He says, I will open up the windows and pour out a blessing you won't even have room to receive. God is always about adding and increasing and multiplying. God never meant for you to reduce yourself so that He can work through you. The Bible says that we're supposed to have dominion, to be fruitful, and to multiply. He's not about reducing, subtracting, taking away. Some plant, some water, but it is God who gives the increase. So God always wants to add to our life. He wants to increase us in our life. He wants us to be fruitful. He wants us to multiply, have dominion, stand in the fullness of who he created us to be. And so I want to encourage you and remind you today that you do not have to reduce yourself. You do not have to diminish yourself. You don't have to keep yourself in a place of feeling like you have an ultimatum. Here's the thing. You don't have to choose. God already chose you. And so if God already chose you, there's no choosing about, well, what should I do? What should I focus on? He already chose you. And when he chose you with everything he put inside of you. Look at David's life, for example. David was a shepherd. He was a worshiper. He was a musician. He was a warrior. None of those roles look like they belong in the same lane. None of those roles seem to be working together. But God was not confused about how he made David. God was not confused about all of the different skills and the talents that David had. And in this story, this is in 1 Samuel 17, verse 28, if you want to go and read it later. When David showed up to the battlefield, his brother Eliab accused him of pride and questioned his own motives. He even asked him, why did you even come down here? He said, and who have you left your little few sheep with in the wilderness? Consider how that could have affected David if he had listened. Because his brother immediately tried to reduce him to just one thing. You're just a shepherd. You don't belong here. This is a battle for warriors, and you're not a warrior, David. You need to go back to the sheep. And by the way, he did try to quantify it too, the few sheep. So not even that you're just a shepherd. Look at the sheep you're shepherding. It's just a few. As if like what you're doing is so insignificant. It doesn't matter to anybody. And then you have the nerve to come to a battle and fight a giant who has been fighting since he was a young boy. So Eliab definitely tried to reduce David to one role, one category, one lane, but we know that that is not the person that God made. David had multiple things inside of him, and God used them all. When he was creating songs for worship that was shaping his heart, and we know that God said that David was a man after his own heart. The same courage that prepared him for battle, all of that belonged to the same calling, to the same person, and God used him in every way he needed him to be used. So David did not abandon one part of himself to walk into another. He carried all that he was forward. He carried all of that into who he was. So, and just imagine, David never fought in a battle before. And the very first battle he shows up to is the battle where there's a giant, Goliath, that needs to be defeated. Of all the battles that David shows up to, he shows up to the Goliath battle. David, although while others were trying to disqualify him for something that they didn't think that God had called him to do, David stood in that assignment. And every skill that God had developed in him was needed. His courage that he gained from the fields, the strength and the responsibility and the vigilance that he had gained while he was shepherding the sheep. His faith from the worship that was being created on the inside of him, and his confidence in walking with God while he felt like he was in obscurity, while others overlooked him and didn't see anything that God was doing with him. Even the harp mattered. Him being a musician, that mattered. In the Bible, it talks about how David would play music for Saul when Saul was in distress or when he was upset. And that music that he played for David would soothe Saul. It would put him in a better place. It would lift his spirits. So even his musicianship, it mattered to God. It was important and it was needed. Nothing inside of David was wasted. And so I want to tell you that nothing inside of you is wasted. And everything that God put on the inside of you is needed. It's not wasted. There is a purpose for it. There is a calling for it. There is an assignment for it. You don't have to choose who God made you to be. You just be who He made you to be. And when you begin to accept that, not feel like you have to constantly be in a place of choosing, but when you begin to accept, this is who I am, that you're a mother, you're a visionary, you're a planner, you're an executor, you're a business owner, whatever that is, whoever God made you to be, whatever those gifts and skills are that created you, the person that you are today, it's not about choosing. It's not about picking either or. It's about the and. It's about accepting this and that. Because God is a God of increase. He multiplies. He's about fruitfulness. He's about multiplication. He's about adding, not taking away. God already did the choosing when He made you. He chose to put certain gifts inside of you. He chose to put certain tendencies and natural strengths inside of you. He already did the choosing. So you don't have to choose. Life and knowing what your calling is and trying to get clarity on your purpose and your vision can feel complex. It can feel very complicated and difficult because you're trying to force yourself to choose against who God made you to be. And that's where the stress comes in. That's where the anxiety can come in. That's where the procrastination can come in. That's where the doubts and the limiting beliefs can come in. Because sometimes you may feel like, well, I have this, but I don't have this. And I have this skill, but I don't have that. No, you have everything that you need. Because God already chose everything that you needed to be a daughter in His kingdom. He already uniquely and intricately, delicately, fearfully, and wonderfully made you. And when He made you whole. Not to be a disintegrated, disconnected, disjointed, fragmented, compartmentalized human being. He made you to be a whole woman. A woman whose joy is complete. A woman whose gifts are full and complete. Yes, we're always in progress, but we are walking with God. And as long as we're walking with Him and we're depending on Him, then we are walking in completeness. We're walking in the fullness of who He made us to be. So we don't have to choose. We can get rid of the stress. You can get rid of the stress. You can let go of the anxiety when you realize you don't have to choose because God did the choosing. He already chose you. He already called you. And there's no unwiring of who you are. You're not going to say, well, this skill, I don't know how it works. I'm not sure if it's needed. So you're going to just like toss it to the side. No, you're going to use it. God has a need for it. And when the time comes, when that season comes, when that assignment shows up, you'll know when to stand in that. So the thing is, rather than trying to force yourself into one option and make every decision feel heavier than what it needs to be, to the point that you find yourself constantly in this decision crisis and decision fatigue, you can let go of that today. And you don't have to think that every opportunity is an ultimatum. And every yes sounds like you're trying to force a certain part of you on one side and then ignore another part. But when you stop choosing, space opens up for things to come together. And as I've said before, Romans 8:28, it says that all things, God works, not us. God works. And please let that sink into your spirit today. Because we're not the ones trying to work it together. But when we try to make it work together, we're trying to make it work. We're trying to make it make sense. We're trying to make things fit. Then that's where the struggle is. But when you realize that it's God, He works all things together for good to those who love Him and to those who are called according to His purpose. And because you're called according to His purpose, He works all things together. That means no more choosing, no more having to decide who God made you. Accept the gifts, the skills, the talents, everything that God placed inside of you. Accept all of that. Embrace it. Stand in it fully, knowing that it's needed. So maybe you have been waiting for clarity so you can make the next step or so you can choose. But realize that clarity comes after acceptance, not before. You've been trying to choose and you've been trying to accept after you have received clarity. But God perhaps is inviting you to say, I want you just to accept what I made. Accept the woman that I made. I know the world, society, and gurus will tell you that you need to choose first so then you can have clarity. But when you accept, understand that God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. He already did the choosing. The world will say you need to choose. He's already laid out a path and a plan for you. And the world will tell you that you need to figure out your path so that you can be successful. In God's ways, his thoughts are saying, no, I already chose. I already chose you. I already called you. I already assigned you. I've already purposed you. He's already prepared you to walk in those good works. Walk meaning to live in it, to live it out, to do, to execute, to plan, to bring into fruition what he has already called, assigned, and prepared you to do. No more choosing today. As you're going throughout this year, I want you to remember that you don't have to choose who God made you to be. You stand in it. You accept, not choose. You accept who God made you to be. And then he will grow you. He will increase you. But he wants to increase all of you. Not just the one part of you that's maybe on your job, or just the one part of you that's trying to do a business, or all of you. He wants to grow all of you because he's concerned about you. You are his entire workmanship. So when you stop trying to choose between parts of yourself, what God is doing begins to make sense. How you start showing up for yourself, for others around you, your church, your community, in the home, in the workplace, it starts to make sense. Pieces start to come together. They start to connect. And what seemed disparate, what seemed disconnected, starts to make sense because you're operating and thinking now from a place of fullness and acceptance of what God is doing and how he made you. And then the timing of how these things start to show up start to become clear too. And then order begins to emerge. No more feeling like you're living in chaos and things feel scattered and disjointed and you're not focused. You will start to understand how these things work together, how they're coming together, how then things that seemed out of order now start to become aligned and in order. So don't force this. Don't try to choose. And that's where some of your struggles have been coming from. That's where some of your procrastination, your hesitation, your doubts, and your limiting beliefs have been coming from, because you're constantly trying to force yourself to choose. God chose you. He did the choosing. He made you. He is the ultimate creator, the chief creator. When he was creating you, he chose your gifts. He chose your skills. He chose your likes, your dislikes. All of that has been chosen and he put it inside of you. Now it's time for you to stand in that, to accept what he already created, to accept what he already chose for you. God is intentional. Even when things don't feel clear for you, God is very intentional with everything he put inside of you. So before I go, I want to leave you with this affirmation, because I am very big on affirmations. And I feel like this may support you if you want to just sit with this, maybe meditate on it a little bit, go back, listen to the video again to really take some time to let it minister to you. Here's an affirmation I want to share with you today. My faith expands my capacity to walk in the fullness of my purpose and vision. God is aligning every gift he placed within me, and I move forward with trust, one step and one day at a time. I hope this blessed you today. And if you're comfortable sharing in the comments, please let me know maybe what's one area of your life where you're learning to stop choosing against yourself. And if you want to go deeper and you feel like you just prefer a dedicated space where you can continue to hold and capture what you have been believing God for when it comes to your calling and your vision and what you are expecting and hoping God to do in your life, I did create this If You Can Believe Vision Affirmation Journal, and it's a space for gratitudes, affirmations, your prayer, your reflections, so that you can really have a dedicated space where you can hold those things that you've been believing, trusting, and praying for. All right, I hope that this blessed you, and remember to live full and live faithful.